Hi, yarn friends. Welcome back to the Fiber and Fables podcast. My name is Jess. You can call me Fiber or Fables. I go by both. So we have made it. We have made it to the final. We have crowned Britain's best knitter. Did you see that coming? It was definitely a huge surprise to everybody, wasn't it? We also got to see what the coveted prize was, and it is gold straight needles on chunky yarn, which is exactly what everybody wanted. So let's get into breaking down the episode. So we start off the episode in a group challenge, and all three contestants, we have Elsa, Helgar, and Lydia, all three of them have to work together in order to create this letterbox art. I guess this is very popular in the UK. I haven't seen this in the States. I'm from New York, so maybe this is just something I haven't seen. We have art installations and art bombs all the time, and usually they're centered around they're very focused on political issues and on making statements. This challenge, they are supposed to encapsulate their time at Game of Wolves. So they did this really beautiful sort of landscape, and they had to make a miniature version of Di, Sheila, and Tom. So each contestant decided to take one of those on, and it came out really beautifully. It was kind of odd seeing the judges judge or critique it, because you can kind of just tell that this was not going to be weighed in their challenge, in their decision on who was going to win. And they were missing sheep. There was no sheep, and I thought that was such a loss, because that was a huge draw to watching the show overall. So let's get into the final challenge. So the final challenge, they have to make a hat. I absolutely loved this challenge. I thought this was a great idea. This is how I thought that the show was going to kind of be set up, and then maybe a bunch of mini challenges with it. But they have to create a hat using any technique, and this was a great opportunity for the knitters to show off their skills, to show off where their strengths really lie, and gave them a lot of freedom in order to sort of make anything. So we have Elsa, and I apologize, I completely was saying her name wrong in my last video. It's Elsa. I think I was calling her Elisa or Alyssa. I'm sorry, that's my fault. I get things wrong sometimes. So she makes this beautiful vintage style hat in houndstooth pattern. It is absolutely beautiful. She decides to knit this in parts and then to sew them together. The judges are very concerned that the pattern is not going to line up, and then it'll kind of look like askew. And this is another underlining issue that I have with the show, is that they are very, very focused on perfection. And yes, this is a competition, so you do want to do the best. You do want everything to look perfect. However, this is handmade goods, handmade products. And I don't know about you, but as a knitter, as a crocheter, I am looking for perfection, but there's only so much perfect that we can fit in when it comes to hand making craft, if that makes sense. And I understand why they wanted it to look as seamless as possible, but Elsa gave a really good reasoning, is that it just would be too much for her to figure out all the math, but also the structure too. The hat that she decided to make, the style was very structured, and if you were to knit it in the round, it would be really hard, unless she would have had to add maybe a dart or something that would give her that shape that she was looking for. So I thought that was a great call on her part, is to do this in parts. So I thought she did a beautiful job. I thought it was great. It was definitely a love letter to her heritage. And Elsa has been so consistent throughout this entire show of how much she pays homage to where she comes from, and to her heritage, and to the love of the art of knitting and crocheting. And she honestly did a beautiful job. And I love what she said, that she said that if she won, she wanted to be kind of like an ambassador to the craft, and that she kind of wanted to preserve those traditions of knitting. And I thought that was lovely. I thought it was beautiful. And it definitely is a message that I think got very much lost, not by her, but by the show overall, is that I do think that they did not pay enough tribute to the history of knitting. Our crafts in general and handmade things are becoming less and less popular, and are you don't know anybody who sews. I don't know anybody else who knits, or especially in my age range, I don't know anybody who does those things. And it's really sad to see that a show that is meant to kind of spread the word of this craft, just, in my opinion, did not pay homage to it. But we'll get into that in a little bit. So then we have Lydia, who did this beautiful beret. I have been itching to make a beret, and I think this is like the yarn god speaking to me to tell me to knit a beret. She did this beautiful like sort of a floppy beret. It had the brim was a bit big, so she did have to add elastic, but I thought that was a great call. She also did these a beautiful pattern that from her culture, and absolutely beautiful. She even used hand-dyed yarn. She dyed the yarn herself. She has a hand-dyeing business. I really hope that this puts her business on the map, and that it definitely brings her more orders. And I'd love to get my hands on this yarn. I love the colors that she picked. I absolutely love the colors that she picked. These are definitely colors that I tend to be drawn to, and I absolutely loved her hat. It was so beautiful, and she did such a great job. I do understand why she probably had to make the brim bigger, because she probably would have to then do decreases, and it might not have looked good, or she probably would have to readjust the math on her pattern. But I thought it looked beautiful, and the judges did notice it. And I was surprised, because I would think that they would say, oh, like they would probably take points away from it because she had to use elastic. But I thought that was a great call, and also that it would fit more heads. So, yeah. And then we have Helgar, who, I mean, what else did we expect from him? He did a completely original pattern. He definitely was able to stuff in as many techniques as possible into one hat. This definitely perfectly encapsulates his style of work and how his time on Game of Wool has looked. Look, I really like Helgar. I really think that his design mindset, it definitely, through knitting, he has created such beautiful pieces on this show. However, I just feel like he's in a different category, or in a different realm than everybody else, and it felt like watching two different shows when each different person was on camera. Him and Tom had this really interesting exchange. I don't know if they wanted to get deeper, if they were trying to get deeper, and maybe Helgar did not want to talk about anything deeper. He did touch a little bit about his parents. He seemed to be very close with his parents, and I think it sounds like he was an only child, because he did not, or I don't know if it was a choice or whether it just didn't happen for him. He did not have children, and so his parents did not have therefore his parents didn't have grandchildren. And it sounds like something that maybe he doesn't regret as a person, but maybe he regrets it for them. So he kind of is talking about that, and that he kind of overcompensated. He kind of became like that perfectionist, and he talks about being a perfectionist to where he thinks he can never get there. And I think that's definitely relatable when it comes to certain things. I don't consider myself a perfectionist, but I am with certain things, wanting to get something right and being frustrated by it not being right. So, yeah, and so that was a really interesting exchange. Tom talked about how he sort of overcompensated because he was different growing up. And yeah, you definitely can feel that way. So, and Tom's an Olympian, so I'm sure that most Olympians are probably perfectionists. I don't think you get to that level without being one, or being like, oh, I'll just do my best today. I don't think that's how you reach that level. So it was definitely interesting. Helger's, it's definitely in a different league. He did sort of like this, I call it like a sleep cap. It was definitely like a sleep cap kind of style. It was a very long kind of Santa-like hat with cable, and he had to do a bunch of decreases. They did do a little TV magic with like, oh, how long is this going to take? He's not done yet. And everybody else was done. I think that was kind of like a trick, a camera trick with us, because it looked like he had a lot done. And if you're a knitter, you know that he probably did not finish that whole section in a half hour, because there was texture there. So plus he had to do the ball, unless he already had done like the ball at the end, or the tassel. It was more of a tassel, sorry. So yeah, and spoiler alert, Helgar won. It didn't seem like they had much deliberation. I wish that they did something at the end where they kind of said something nice about each contestant, about each finalist, like maybe go through all of their work, or talked about that. I think that would have been much sweeter. I thought that would have been a lot nicer. It just seemed very like, yeah, Helgar won. The end. So he wins the golden knitting needles. We also got to see people, previous contestants came in, and they got to see all the pieces that they maybe weren't there for of those challenges. And it seemed like a cute little party. Friends and families were also there for the finalist. And so it was very nice. It was a very nice ending. I do have a lot of criticism for the show. I do hope that they improve. I do want a second season. So I am weary when people are so outraged by it, because and there's a lot to be upset about with this show. I do feel like they didn't cultivate a knitter's mindset. They heavily criticized Isaac. It was a whole like mini storyline for unraveling one of the vintage pieces so then he can re-knit it. And there's a whole section of our craft of knitting that is dedicated to repurposing yarn, and sort of saying that, oh, it's a waste of time. It's not a waste of time if you are doing things in a more sustainable way. That's another thing that is sort of been like an underlining issue in this show, is that I think that a lot of us knit and crochet because it is a slow process. It's slow fashion, and doing that, sort of speeding it up and expecting them to do a bunch of techniques, and therefore they have to cut corners, they have to take time off. It definitely takes away from what I feel knitting is. I really wish that they would have done something like challenging them to maybe repair things. I've seen all these TikToks and all of these videos on how to repair holes in your knitted items, in your crochet items, how to fix them, how to patch them up, how to give them a new life. And I feel like this show was just more interested in this avant-garde, runway, high fashion, because that is Di and Sheila's wheelhouse. And although that's great, it's great to see knitting have a space there, I just don't think that this competition, it fell short. It fell short in that for me. I wonder that because you're not really educating the broader audience. It's sort of using that very flashy art kind of runway, high fashion, in order to engage viewers. But really, as from what I see, is that mostly knitters and crocheters, people that already do this craft. But we're the ones that are watching this, and I would have liked more if I got to learn more techniques, if I got to learn more about the history of maybe you know, spinning. They could have done more things on dyeing, on natural fibers. And when is it appropriate to use cotton versus wool? Is there? Can you use both? What is mohair? When do you use mohair? When do you use suri lace? And with knitting, there are no rules, but it just would have been nice to hear, especially from knitters and crocheters that have been doing this for years. It just seems like this competition was always geared for someone like Helga to win. And, you know, that's kind of disheartening. So I don't really think it's fair to invite another designer like him. They're always going to have a designer mindset, and designers are also trying to do things in the most flashiest way in order to capture somebody's eye. And that, to me, is not what knitting is for, or what crocheting is for. So, you know, so let me know your thoughts below. What did you think of the final? Were you shocked? Were you shocked by this? I don't think anybody was, but let me know your thoughts below. I am also, I don't know, I'm gonna look up Lydia's hand dye company. Maybe they ship to the States, or maybe she has some sellers in the States. But let me know down below, what did you think? Would you wear any of those hats? I definitely would have worn Lydia's, and I don't know if I would wear Helga's. I don't know. To me, like I said, it looked like a sleep cap. So let me know down below. Please like, share, subscribe if you would like to. Do you like my shirt? I don't know if I like it. Kind of has like this sparkliness. I'm not sure if I like it, but let me know down below. Please like, subscribe, and comment, and share if you think it's worth sharing. All right, bye guys.